Welcome to the ANEW Insight Podcast, empowering and inspiring your journey to optimal health. Hosted by Dr. Supatra Tovar, clinical psychologist, registered dietitian, fitness expert, and author of Deprogram Diet Culture. Rethink your relationship with food, heal your mind, and live a diet-free life. I follow my guests' journey to optimal health, providing you with the keys to unlock your own wellness path. Tune in and evolve with us. Welcome back, everyone. We are back for the second half of our incredible conversation with Jeff Patterson. We have been exploring meditation, martial arts, resilience, and how evolving a life practice can transform both our inner and outer lives. I can't wait to continue this conversation. Welcome back, Jeff.
Hey, thanks.
So, one of your central ideas in your work is yielding. Talk about the yielding warrior. What does yielding actually mean? And why is it such a powerful principle both on and off the mat?
Yeah, yielding is a very powerful concept, and it's often mistaken. And people think and look at yielding as a weakness, as like giving up. And I'll briefly kind of explain my take on it, and you'll see that it can be very strategic and can be very powerful. So the idea of yielding, I've broken down into three main pillars. There's physical yielding, mental yielding, and emotional yielding. Physical yielding is the idea that I push you, you push me, whoever's the bigger, stronger person with the most leverage eventually is going to push the other person over. But with yielding, instead of us trying to see who the bigger meathead is, when you push me, I get out of the way of that force, and now I can respond with less effort. Now, this is very effective for athletes or fighters or people who are coming up against other athletes or people that are stronger and bigger and more powerful than them, because if you just meet them head on, they're going to overpower you and control the situation. But with yielding, and we're able to sense that energy coming in, we can redirect it to a point where they're not as strong and then respond with the least amount of effort to get where we want to go. And this is how you've heard many stories through the years about how the small person defeats the bigger person, and yielding is a big part of that. In fact, there's martial arts that are their whole philosophy is around the yielding concept. It all kind of originates from Tai Chi, but Aikido and Jiu-Jitsu and Judo, they have a lot of yielding aspects to them. And so this is what we call physical yielding. And now with physical yielding, in order to be good at this, a lot of things have to come into play. You need to be well-rooted. The lower part of your body needs to be strong and flexible so you can change your central equilibrium without getting tight. The body has to be relaxed. The breath has to be calm and even, and the mind has to be present. Now, it's a lifetime journey to really master this skill. However, from day one, by integrating a meditation practice into your life, you start to become more aware of these things inside yourself. And once you start to see those things with more clarity, this is where it becomes very interesting. And now we're moving into what I call mental yielding. So the ability to see those things inside of ourselves helps expand our awareness, which also helps us see those things more clearly in other people. So say, for example, you and I are having a conversation and I say something that unsettles you, and I pick up on it from the first sign of imbalance. Maybe it's a change in your tone or your breath or your structure or alignment. And at this point, it's a lot easier to adjust the conversation and keep us in a happy place than if I'm not paying attention to that. And pretty soon I'm so far off track, you want to knock me upside the head. And so learning how to use yielding in all of our interactions is extremely powerful. It helps with our relationships, with business, negotiations, and helps us guide these conversations to a positive outcome with the least amount of resistance. So in no way is it giving up. It's more being strategic and sensitive and aware of how the flow of the conversation is going. And then the third pillar of yielding is emotional yielding. This is very much like mental yielding, but it's with our own interpersonal conflicts. So you think about oftentimes something will happen and we'll respond and we'll go down this path. And we might get an hour, a day, a week down the road and realize maybe we should have done something a little bit different.
Mm.
But with yielding, because of our heightened awareness, rather than getting 7 days down the road and making the realization, we're able to notice that imbalance and see that uh, those changes as soon as they start to happen. So now, rather than going down this one road too far, we're able to make those adjustments and oftentimes save us a lot of heartache on the other side. When I start to talk about yielding in this way through the years, I've had so many people say, that makes a lot of sense. In fact, I do yielding all the time. Well, I would agree in that I think everybody does some degree of yielding, whether they recognize it or label it as that or not. However, it's kind of like if you or I were to walk into a crime scene with a detective who's been on the job for 30 years. I guarantee you that person would see things about the series of events and the timeline that I know at least I would have no clue of.
Mhm.
Meditative arts helps us see things inside of ourselves and inside of other people that I truly believe most people go through life and never have any clue of. And so this is how we can use meditation in one of the many philosophical concepts, yielding, in our lives to get different outcomes and to be more aware and to just have another pillar of awareness in our life.
I love this. I often work with clients on resistance versus allowing. It used to be resistance versus accepting, but I really like the concept of allowing. I think many people struggle with having an idea about how things should be done or how people should act or how they should be treated, and for good reason. There's really good reasons behind that. And that is what creates so much friction in their lives when they come into something already in a resistive state, and they're really just like wanting to be recognized or be validated for their way of thinking. And it's completely comes from understandable reasons why they do this. But when they start to practice allowing, which is just allowing other people to be as they are and allowing themselves to be as they are, and it's not even necessarily accepting other people, because I think accepting makes you feel kind of icky inside. It makes you feel that like awful sigh of like, ugh, there you are, great. But when you can really just allow that person and not be so tightly drawn into yourself, I think we have so much that we can learn, and it is actually freeing. So yielding and allowing can free us of a lot of our set ways. I really, really, really love that. Let's transition into breath, which is so important, breath work. And it's become a major focus in health and performance. Give a picture of how breath work influences the nervous system, emotional regulation, and mental clarity.
Okay, I'd like to chat about the breath in maybe a little bit more of a broad term of the foundational principles in the meditative arts, and I think this will help people understand how to use the breath more clearly with our physical, mental, and emotional well-being. And so, with any meditation practice, whether you are doing sitting practice, movement based meditation like Tai Chi or Qigong or yoga, whatever it is, there's these underlying principles in the practice that will help build the foundation and give you a deeper level of awareness in any journey you take on the meditative arts. And they are regulating the body, regulating the breath, regulating the mind, regulating the energy, and regulating the spirit.
Mm.
Briefly, I'll touch on all of those and spend a little more time on the breath since that's what you were asking about. So, with regulating the body, the basic idea is is your skeletal alignment, your muscular tension and relaxation in the body, and your awareness of this throughout the day. Think of a time maybe when you're in front of your computer for 3 or 4 hours and your shoulders are rounded forward and you're feeling lethargic and maybe your neck's getting tight. And then another time when the most important person in your world walks in the room and your body perks up and you feel like you're on top of the world. Well, these two different energetic states we're in 100% control of all day, every day. And this awareness through our meditation practice helps us be more in tune with this. And this helps regulate our well-being throughout the day. The next stage is the breath. And the breath is a very deep topic and something that, we could literally talk for hours about. Qigong is often referred to as the science of the breath, and there's hundreds of different breathing strategies within a Qigong practice. And we'll use this breath work to get different outcomes. And we start to understand how to use the breath in our ritual and active practices to regulate our emotional and mental well-being throughout the day. Because there's so many different strategies, we often broadly categorize them into yin methods and yang methods. Yin methods are often deeper, more holistic style of breathing meditations that help center us and bring us to a deeper state of meditation, while yang are more expansive and energizing. An example of a yin breath would be if you ever listen to somebody sleep, you'll notice that they naturally do a longer inhale and a shorter exhale. And this is the body's natural way of bringing our conscious mind into our subconscious mind, which is where we are when we're sleeping and dreaming. Now, once we understand this, if we want to bring the anxiety down or bring back into kind of more of a settled state, we can do this yin style breathing to help find that focus and that root. On the flip side of that, if we're feeling a little bit lethargic and we want to be energized and we want to kind of pump ourselves up a little bit, we can use the yang side of the breath. And an example of that would be, think about a time maybe when you had to push your car or you pick up something heavy. Your natural instinct is to exhale and put tension in the breath and maybe even make the breath audible. And this helps expand that energy outward. And when you understand how to use this, we call this balancing the kan and li, or the fire and water. We can notice these energetic states physically, mentally, and emotionally, and then use the breath through the kan and li and the balancing of this fire and water to help adjust these physical and emotional states throughout the day with our active and ritual practices. And so the breath is a real key tool in any meditation journey. Then the next pillar in the 5 regulations is regulating the mind. Regulating the mind is a very deep and important part of the journey, and something that you'll be utilizing and studying for the rest of your time doing meditation. And it's also one that I feel like kind of detours people sometimes, in that I've heard many people through the years tell me, I tried meditation, but it just didn't work for me. I couldn't quiet my mind. And somewhere along the way, people got this misguided idea that in order to be successful at meditation, you have to reach this state of nirvana where nothing bothers you. And I spent my whole career traveling around the world, training with teachers and studying with some of the most well-known meditation teachers on the planet. And I have never once met anybody who doesn't get distracted. Getting distracted is part of your journey, and that's okay. If you sit and meditate for 20 minutes and you get distracted 50 times, but every time you get distracted, you recognize the imbalance and you bring yourself back to center with the movement, the breath, or your posture, you just got 50 repetitions of being out of balance and finding focus. You do that every day, every month, every year, you start to develop this power and this ability to find that center and find that focus among any distraction that comes your way. There's this story I like about these two old monks who are walking down this dirt road after a huge rainstorm, and they come up to this big mud puddle, and on the other side of the puddle is this beautiful little girl, and she's standing there in a white dress, and she's crying. The older monk, he hollers across the puddle and says, "Is everything okay? Can we help you?" And she says, "I need to be somewhere, but if I walk across this puddle, I'm going to get my dress all dirty." So the older monk, he rolls up his pant legs and he walks across the puddle, picks her up, puts her on his back, takes her to the other side, sets her down, and she's off on her way. Well, him and the younger monk are walking a few miles down the road, and finally the younger monk is just furious, and he says, "You know we're not supposed to touch girls, but you did back there at the puddle." And the older monk looks down and says, "You're still carrying that girl around? I left her back there at the puddle." How many times in life do we need to get 3 miles down the muddy road before we
Yes.
realize that we need to let that stuff go? And so regulating the mind is a very important part, but it's also important that we understand that there is no perfection. There is no one thing that makes us successful. This is all part of the journey. And then the fourth regulation is regulating the energy. And this as well is a very deep topic. And there's many different ways that we can lead the energy inward, extend it outwards, circulate the energy in the body. And we do this by developing a competent state in regulating the body, the breath, and the mind. And when you have that foundation, that allows you to have the tools to regulate the energy in the body. So it's all connected and part of the same process. And then the fifth and final regulation, which is very profound, which is regulating the spirit. And this is something that, meditation practitioners will spend their entire life's journey working towards reaching deeper levels of awareness in this. And so with those 5 regulations, you can see that can affect everything you do in life. And that's the core of any meditation practice.
Wow. I love all of that. And I love how it translates into the work that I do as a psychologist in so many ways. And I have become increasingly interested in energy. I just think it's fascinating because I'm also a dietitian. So obviously, we get energy from our food. We get energy once we've had a decent night's rest. But I think it is so fascinating how we can deplete our energy or how we can um, increase our energy by the states of our minds and our physical beings, just alone, independent of the physical energy that we can get from food. And I'd love to explore that with you just a little bit. It might be a little more on the philosophical or maybe even spiritual side. But what is that energy when we are in negative states of mind and we are in our sympathetic nervous system? Obviously, our energy will be depleted. That's where you see a lot of depression, and anxiety is also leading us to lower energy states. Even though we might be activated, eventually we get low in our energy. But just by becoming aware of our thoughts and choosing our thoughts more wisely and using our minds more wisely, whether it's, we used to see the worst case scenario all the time, instead seeing the best case scenario, starting to visualize better outcomes for us, all of a sudden we have a boost in energy. What is the energy?
So energy, according to Qigong philosophy, comes from 2 main sources. There's the piezoelectric energy in the body, that every cell has a charge in the body, a positive and negative charge. This charge can be affected on how we circulate energy in the body. And then there's the air that we breathe, the inhale and exhale. Now, these are the 2 main sources, but they're affected by the food that we take. If you go out one night and you drink 6 beers and you wake up in the morning and feel horrible, that's going to affect your energy. But if you eat healthy and you're taking in organic food and you're feeding your body what it needs to survive and function effectively, you're going to have more natural energy. And so that's a big part of it. How you hold your posture is part of it. If you walk around with your shoulders slumped like this, you're going to naturally start feeling depressed and feeling low energy. And so this, as far as your food intake, your posture, and how you adjust your posture and move throughout the day, if you do a repetitive movement that's got incorrect alignment, you're going to make yourself sore, which is going to bring that energy level down, maybe even injure yourself. Then it's the breath. How do we use the breath strategically? If you breathe, for example, when somebody gets depressed, you'll notice maybe they cry and they're having spending a period of time where they're in this depressive state. They'll naturally inhale longer than they exhale. If you ever listen to somebody cry, it's
Mm-hmm.
they have this kind of breathing pattern. Well, when you do that over time, it will make you ill. It'll weaken your immune system. And that's why a lot of people who are depressed get sick. So it's a combination of all of these things put together, including our thoughts. If you're thinking about how you're failing and how you're no good, think about how that's going to affect your posture, and your breath's going to become more shallow. And all of these things kind of follow that reaction. And again, we're kind of following through the 5 pillars or the 5 regulations we just talked about. All of these are very closely connected to our energetic states. And by having this understanding and this awareness, we can use that to control our energy. And sometimes people get this idea that energy is this mystical thing. There's nothing mystical about it. Everybody has energy. Every plant has energy. The wind is energy. There's energy everywhere, but it all affects us. Think about another way to look at this energy, like from outside the body, is think about if you're on a busy street and there's people walking everywhere, the cars are driving by, there's lots of noise, how you feel in that scenario versus sitting by yourself by the side of a creek or a river and just listening to the water roll by. Those are two different places that you're in that are affecting your energy, your thoughts, your posture, your breath. And so when we talk about energy and cultivating a meditation practice, we take all of those things into consideration, because that's part of us being able to control and adjust our physical, mental, and emotional well-being throughout our life.
Yes, yes, and yes. And I also love, I've had a lot of conversations with Reiki masters, and I am fascinated, and really, I think it's illuminating when you understand, or you look at the concept of the universal life force. You are absolutely right that everything is energy and everything is connected through this universal life force. And I think, and I hope I'm not wrong, but I think that we can either open ourselves up to that energy and then create and gain more energy, or we can close ourselves off. And I do think that when we are experiencing more positive states, most especially if you get into the super positive states like joy and love, that's when you actually really do open yourself. You're on that same energetic wavelength. And that's where you have access more readily to that energy. That's why you can be energized regardless of your nutritional, nourished state or your sleep state, is that you are actually putting yourself on that same wavelength. And when you are practicing more negative states, you're cutting yourself off from that. I love talking about this. I could talk about this all day with you. So we only have time for a couple more questions. What am I going to ask you? Tell me, if someone who's listening has never meditated before but wants to become calmer and more resilient and more intentional, what is the first step you would encourage them to take this week?
Go back and re-listen to the 3 considerations that we talked about and go through that process. And then once you solidify that purpose and that reason to take on the practice, start with even one, you want to try to find a path to follow, and that comes with finding somebody to help you in that direction. But even if you don't have anything, if you could just every 60 minutes, 90 minutes, set an alarm on your phone and just count out 10 deep belly breaths and just kind of bring that awareness in there. If you did that every day for 30 days, you'll notice a shift from that. And this is something that I always like to let new people know that are coming to the practice, because I understand when you start something new, it's hard to develop a habit, right? It's hard to develop something that you kind of have to have a little bit of blind faith in. That, is this really worth my time? I'm too busy. You have all these excuses, right? I've heard thousands of them through the years of why people don't do this. But I've also seen thousands of students through the years come to this practice, and the ones that listen to this advice and do this, I see practicing 20, 30 years. And if you were to just do a 20-minute a day ritual practice, integrate some of these active practices throughout the day, and keep that up consistently for a year, do it every day, whether you feel like it or not, just do it. By the end of that year, you'll see so much value in what you've put in there that you'll do this for the rest of your life, and it won't even be a question of whether you want to do it or not. But through those beginning months, it's a little bit of a struggle sometime, but you have to, again, go back to your why. What's drawing you to want to do this practice? So you have that motivation to get through those times of uncertainty.
And certainly, I can say this from practice, that it is one of the best ways I can think of to spend my time. I think that there is something so deep, so calming, so centering about having a practice like this, and it really does change your life. Oh my gosh, Jeff, I want you to come back because I didn't get to ask a million questions. I could sit in front of you all day, but can you please tell people how they can get a hold of you, how they can maybe learn from you, how you might be their guru?
Sure. So my website is theyieldingwarrior.com. And if you're interested too, I created this app for my students that's 100% free. All you got to do is set yourself up on an account with that, and it will walk you through ritual practices, active practices. It has a reset timer on there to remind you to do your resets. It has a journal on there, and it's all 100% free for anybody that wants to do it. And it's just a way for you to get introduced to the practice and hopefully help a lot of people with that. And that you can get that at app.theyieldingwarrior.com. And
Oh my goodness.
you can download that onto your phone, turn on the notifications, and it'll help you with keeping track of that.
Guys, it's a free app where you can learn how to begin your practice of meditation. I really hope everybody downloads it. I'm going to download it. That is awesome. I'm going to recommend it to my clients who are interested in meditation. This has been one of my most favorite podcasts of all time. I just think you are so calming, just so centered, and it is really lovely to sit in front of you. And I can imagine that your students all feel the same way, and they feel very fortunate to have you as their teacher. And I really hope that this podcast helps you get more students. And I really do hope more people learn about you and download your app. Thank you so much for joining me, Jeff.
Hey, thank you very much for having me.
Yes, I'm going to have you back. You know I will. Thank you so much. And thank you for tuning into the ANEW Insight Podcast. I, of course, look forward to my next interview and really do hope you join me next time.
Thanks for tuning into the ANEW Insight Podcast. Please remember, the contents shared on this podcast is for entertainment purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. Tune in next time and evolve with us.